welcome to Every Day is Saturday. I'm your host, Paul Gebhardt, and my special guest today is Brad Gatto of Fiat Wealth Management. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So I got to jump out of the box with the very first thing I just got to say, because to be a homer, I'm a Prince fan, right? And you're from Minneapolis.
I live in Minneapolis. I'm not from there. I can't claim Minnesota.
So tell me a little bit about your path, your journey
Sure.
to Minnesota then. How did you get to Minnesota?
School.
Yeah.
I went up there to go to school. I wanted to go to a private Christian institution. I actually went to college to become a minister, a youth minister specifically.
Really?
And I ended up being a financial advisor. So that pretty normal route to get to this field, right?
I love it. Either way, you're helping people.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Exactly.
So I understand your kids are quite the entertainers, right?
They are.
Speaking of Prince fans, right?
I got 2 boys.
Yeah, 2 boys?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's their names?
Liam, actually his full name's William. We call him Liam.
Yeah.
Little control of the nickname there. He's got an identity crisis going on. He's 11, and I've got Hudson, who actually is on the cusp of 8 years old right now.
Yeah, and I hear they do a just vicious version of Purple Rain. Right?
Their dad likes to listen to loud music in the car, and Purple Rain is definitely on the dial.
I love it, dude. That's awesome. That's what a fun time. Okay, well, listen, I want to break in now to a topic, pretty much forefront of everyone's mind, I think.
Yeah.
After the pandemic, we've seen a lot of crazy things happen, and we know that the government got involved and had to do a lot of bailout.
Yeah.
And so everybody out there is wondering, when is the tax shoe going to drop and what can we do about it?
Yeah. It's hard to say, right? So I got to get that out there. I have no idea what the future holds. But even before the pandemic, Paul, we were living in kind of a specific period of time where taxes were on sale. I mean, if you really go back and look at the history of taxes in this country, they've only been taxing us directly for about 108 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was actually, they had to pass the 16th Amendment to even get the right to tax us directly. And so in 1913, they start the first ever income tax. And so if you look at the route that we've taken relative to the spending of the country and economic cycles, we're living in a pretty darn good time for taxes. And then in 2018, they actually implemented the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which put taxes on sale for all intents and purposes for the vast majority of Americans. The catch to that, or the caveat, was it's not permanent. Like most good sales, at Target or otherwise,
that's my favorite place.
Right? They don't last forever,
It's true.
and so the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act unfortunately expires in 2025.
So then people are left with the question, what's next?
Yeah. So we know for a fact taxes are going up for the vast majority of Americans in 2025, at least as the law exists today.
Yeah.
If we know there's anything consistent with taxes, Paul, it's that change happens, right? And so in that 113 years, we've had a lot of different tax rates, a lot of different exemptions, deductions, all of it's changing all the time. But as the law stands today, what we know is in 2025, for the majority of Americans anyway, taxes are going to go up. And then you brought in these other potential issues, right? We all know the government's writing checks. We all know the printing machine is on. It's been on since last March. Now we're getting away with it.
Yeah.
Right? We're monetizing the debt and we're getting away with it. The dollar has maintained to this point, but it kind of feels like we're riding down the interstate in a car with a bunch of duct tape on it. And don't get me wrong, duct tape is great. It's going to hold up for a while, but eventually we're going to have to pay for what we're doing. Yeah. And there's only a couple of ways to do that. You either keep printing money or you come back to the Americans and ask us to help foot that bill.
Yes, and that's the number one way they have to generate revenue, right?
It is. It is. And so when you look at the tax rates that we're paying today, some of the cheapest that we've ever paid relative to where the debt stands. I don't know how familiar you are, Paul, but like when you think about the debt to income ratio of our country, it's no different than you and I. We have our budgets, we have income that comes in the door, and then we have bills and debt to service. So the kind of that ratio, the highest it ever was prior to, we just set a new record last November. But prior to that, the record was 1946.
Wow.
Now, I wasn't alive in 1946, but I do know what was going on.
Sometimes I feel like I was.
We were on the back end of a tiny little World War that we just got done funding in multiple theaters and helping fund wars for our allies. And so because of that, of course, we racked up a ton of debt. And so we set this record where we had more debt to income than our country had ever had. And that record stood until last November. And then last November, we broke the record. We were at 110%. The record was 108. That was in November.
Right.
Today, 132 last I looked. Don't quote me, but it's somewhere around there. So we kind of smashed past the record, and now we keep going. So eventually we're going to have to pay the bill.
Yeah, the bill's coming due, that's for sure. And so, speaking of paying the bill, right? I know there's a lot of folks out there with it on their mind, just like it's on my mind.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mind paying my fair share of taxes, Brad. I mean, I never have, really. I mean, I understand how infrastructure works. You got to have roads. I mean, there's things. You got to pay for the military. I think most good Americans are, well, I think all Americans are patriotic, to be honest with you. And in the end of the day, we still want to be in a situation where we don't want to be taxed so much that we don't have enough to survive, right? We don't have enough to get through retirement, Brad. What do you say to people out there who have that concern? Are there some things, some strategies they can take advantage of?
Yeah, it's a really good question, quite simply because most people don't think about that when they think about retirement planning.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that falls on my industry, actually.
Really?
I think it's my industry's fault for not focusing more in on the tax side of things. In fact, most advisors tell their clients explicitly, I hear it all the time, well, I can't help you with taxes. I don't do taxes. I don't do tax planning, which I think is a little disingenuous. Because, Paul, if I came to you and I said, Paul, I think you should put some money in this 401k, of course that's an investment decision.
Right.
But it's also a tax decision because you chose to put that away on a pre-tax basis, which is just a really fancy way to say, I'm not going to pay you today, IRS. I'm going to choose to pay you at a later date or an unknown date in the future. And so there is a tax consequence to every dollar that you save. And so building a plan that doesn't just look at rate of return or my mutual fund can beat up your mutual fund, you know, that kind of stuff, that's my opinion versus some other advisor's opinion.
Sure.
And so who knows if I'm right or if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
Taxes are not an opinion.
Yeah.
Right? They're a law.
Yep.
There's a code for exactly what you're going to pay. And so when you think about having a pile of money, whatever your pile of money is, there's a tax consequence to every dollar that you have. And so figuring out how to disinherit the IRS as much as possible so that you're not paying more than your fair share. Because that's the goofy thing about taxes in our country is we actually live in a voluntary tax system. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Now, voluntary doesn't mean you can choose not to pay. That's not what that means.
Not that kind of voluntary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Voluntary means you have to tell the IRS what you owe them. The onus is on you to create your own invoice.
Yeah.
Right? So every year we all do this. We go through this exercise at the end of every year where we're trying to gather up all the documents to figure out how much we owe the IRS. They put the onus on us to tell them. What they probably won't do is come back to you and be like, well, there's probably a better way you could have done that. Right?
Yeah.
And when you start overlaying that thought, Paul, with the fact that the vast majority of people that we deal with anyway, at Fiat, we kind of specialize in that blue collar, worker that they've done well for themselves. I call them super savers.
Yeah. I understand we have to take a quick break here, but I think you have an offer for our viewers today. Would you share that with them, Brad?
Yeah, absolutely. So we love education. We love trying to help people understand the tax consequences of their decisions and their pile of money in retirement. And so what we've done is we've just set aside a handful of times over the next couple of weeks that we have available to educate you on exactly that. The big questions, things like, are my taxes on sale, Brad? Did the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act impact me in a positive way? And should I be taking advantage of that? Do I need an IRA exit strategy? The majority of my money is sitting in a bucket that's never been taxed, and so how do I get it out of there efficiently? Which pile of money should I be pulling first from a tax perspective? How does that affect my Social Security? How does it affect my Medicare, Medicaid? And so we've set aside a handful of times over the next couple of weeks where we can begin the process of educating you on how those taxes will impact your retirement. And so all you have to do is call the number on the screen, 844-726-9116, to schedule that complimentary visit with our firm.
Yeah, fantastic information. Listen, we got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back with some more good information about taxes and how you can plan. Stay with us, won't you?
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just a downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Every Day is Saturday. I'm your host, Paul Gebhardt. I'm here with my good buddy, Brad Gatto. My goal for this segment is to hold it together because this guy's killing me. I got to come back to my mutual fund is going to be the mutual fund. I thought that was hilarious.
That's my industry in a nutshell.
That's pretty good.
We're all arguing over rate of return.
It's a funny one. But I got to ask you, okay, so we talked a little bit about an IRA exit strategy.
Yeah.
How you can help with that. Would you share that with the viewer?
Yeah, what I mean by that is just the fact that the majority of, I kind of mentioned that we work with a lot of blue collar, I call them super savers.
Yes.
Right? So the people that worked hard their entire life, saved their absolute butts off to get to the point that they're at, and now they have to take that pile of money and figure out how to turn it into a paycheck.
Right.
I mean, you think it's daunting saving for retirement and figuring out what bucket should I put this pile of money in and how should I invest it? Wait till you get there and you have to figure out how to save it. The idea I get in my head, Paul, is can you imagine being 22 years old, you get out of college, you go get your first job.
Yeah, no,
right?
I remember.
And you get a salary of $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And you get your first paycheck and you rip it open because you're super excited and on the paycheck is a $2 million. And you're like, whoa. That's not what I expected.
Yeah.
And so now you've got this internal struggle. Do I say something? Do I not say something?
Oh, yeah.
But
because that's a real
angel,
tough one.
Right. The angel wins out. You go say something to your boss. He's like, no. That's your paycheck. That's the $50,000 for the next 40 years. We're just going to prepay you now. And you figure out how to, stretch it out over time on your own. We're not going to do that for you. What are the odds that 22-year-old has any money left at 35?
Oh, yeah. Well, heck, I mean, $2 million in the hand of a 22-year-old. I can imagine. Yeah.
As a couple of men, we're not even mature at 22, right? I think scientifically our frontal lobe's not mature till 25. But regardless, that's kind of what you're tasked with in retirement, right? Whenever you retire, 55, 60, 65, 70, you've got whatever pile of money you have. And you're tasked with this idea that you now have to turn it into a paycheck for the next 10 years, 20 years, maybe 30 years. It's a daunting thought.
Yeah, it is.
And then this IRA exit strategy, kind of tie a bow all the way back to this. The majority of people have the majority of their money in a bucket that's never been taxed. It's in a 401k, it's in an IRA, it's in a 403b, a 457 plan, whatever it is that you have. I would say on average, about 80% of people's money is tied up in that bucket.
Yeah.
And so now every time you pull a dollar out, it's taxed as if you just made that dollar today, the same way your W-2 paycheck was. And so trying to figure out a distribution strategy to get it out of there when your tax bill is the cheapest is really important. And unfortunately, my industry has just taught people that if you don't need it, don't pull it out.
Really?
Right?
Yeah.
And so just leave it in the IRA and defer it until you have to take it. In fact, there's a magical age that the IRS forces you to start taking your money out, which is really interesting because prior to your age of 59 and a half, Paul, they say, no, you can't touch it.
Yeah.
And if you touch it, I'm going to penalize you.
That's true.
Right? You got to pay the tax bill and a 10% penalty.
Right.
And then you get these 12 and a half magical years of your life where the IRS leaves you alone. And then at 72, they come and say, okay, I know you couldn't touch the money until you were 59, but now you have to pull it out. Now you have to touch it. They call it required minimum distributions, and you have no control over the taxation of that money because it just has to come out.
Yeah, it has
Now, there are some strategies you can do to try to minimize the taxes at that point of your life, but you definitely lose some control. In fact, they'll penalize you again. If you don't take your RMD it's a lot more painful than it was pre-59.5. You paid a 10% penalty.
Yeah.
You miss an RMD, it's a 50% penalty.
50%?
50. Yeah, so in those 12 and a half years,
wow,
which is really your 60s, right? In the first couple of years of your 70s, people, at least our experience has been, the majority of people do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
The money just sits there. And if you think about that over the last decade, people just turning 72 now, I mean, what's the market done over the last 12 years?
Yeah, sure.
Skyrocket.
Yeah, it's been
which is
good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's been life-changing for a lot of people. But now the tax problem becomes bigger because that IRA sat there that entire time, and the entire thing grew on a basis that you owe the IRS money on every dollar you pull out. And the goofy part is, Paul, nobody really knows how much they owe the IRS. They pull the dollar out, and it's just kind of a lick your finger, stick it in the air, and be like, I don't really know, but I'm going to file my invoice at the end of the year, and then I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
The cool part is, because well, not a lot of cool things about taxes, but is that it's a code, it's a law.
Yeah.
And so, unlike a CPA, which files your taxes, but they look backwards, right? When do you meet with your CPA?
Yeah, well, typically I meet end of the year, beginning of the year, but...
Yeah, most of your decisions are done.
Yep.
You've already made all the decisions, and then you task them with basically creating the invoice.
Right.
Our job is to look forward.
Yeah.
And say, okay, over the next year, 5 years, 10 years, what do your anticipated tax liabilities look like? And when should we be pulling money out of your IRAs to minimize the tax liability? The crazy part is, Paul, the perfect time to pull money out of your IRA almost never coincides with the day you want to spend the money. But that's the disconnect for most people, is if I pull the money out of my IRA, I have to spend it. Well, no, you don't.
Right.
You've been a saver your entire life. You've been getting money your entire life that you didn't spend, which is why you got to retire.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So just because the money comes out of the IRA, so going back to mutual funds, if you own ABC Mutual Fund, which isn't real, but if you own ABC Mutual Fund and you love it, you're like, Brad, I don't want to get rid of ABC Mutual Fund, so I don't want to pull the money out of my IRA. Well, we can pull the money out of the IRA and change the tax status of the money. So now it's in a bucket that's already been taxed, and we're kind of off the grid with the IRS, and then just rebuy ABC Mutual Fund. Again, another disconnect for a lot of people is that's not an investment decision. That's a tax decision.
Right.
And we can separate those two things out. And so, long answer to the question, but an IRA exit strategy is really trying to figure out, with all this money that I have that I've never been taxed on, how do I get it out of that bucket as efficiently as possible?
Yeah, that's powerful. But I think what's really powerful about what you're saying is that there's options.
Yeah.
You have options.
Yeah.
You know, and how do you find about those options? You get to sit down with Brad and his team.
Yeah.
And let them put a strategy together for you. Would you recap for us again the offer you're giving the viewer?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've set aside a handful of times over the next couple of weeks to schedule a complimentary visit with a member of our team. And in that visit, we're going to try to answer those questions. Do I need an IRA exit strategy? How do I minimize my taxes? Are my taxes on sale right now? And how do I put a plan together that's cognizant not just of the investment side of the picture, but of the tax side of the picture as well? And so if you dial the number on the screen, 844-726-9116, we can schedule that complimentary visit with a member of our team and answer those questions for you.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Brad. Again, all you have to do is reach out, give them a call, 844-726-9116. We got to take a quick break, but we'll be right back after these short messages. Stay with us, won't you?
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Well, welcome back to Every Day is Saturday. I'm your host, Paul Gebhardt, with my good friend here, Brad Gatto of Fiat Wealth Management. Phenomenal and enlightening segment, I can tell you that, my friend. Unbelievable. And
Who knew taxes could be enlightening?
Yeah, right? And funny. I mean, you made them fun. I laughed a little bit there. So I wanted to get into something with you, a little bit about kind of like my personal strategy. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there like me. Got my money tied up in the market, you know, and the market's been doing good, like you said, 12 years or so.
Not bad.
But I got to be honest, I'm a little bit concerned. You know, I think back to 2008, and it's been on my mind, you know.
Yeah.
Market volatility. Is there anything I could do to protect myself?
It's a good question, and nobody can predict the future.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll just be honest with you. I would have never guessed when the market dropped 30% in 30 days last year that today we'd be where we're at. That said, the question for somebody that's entering into retirement or already in retirement, it's a tough question because should you even be asking it? Because if you have to ask that question, are you taking too much risk in the first place?
Great point.
And so one of the things that we start with, or we kind of have to back up to with most people, is saying, well, do you even need to be taking risk in the first place? And so risk is one of those things. It doesn't matter if it's the stock market or anything else in life. Getting on a motorcycle without a helmet, skydiving, whatever risks you choose to take, getting in a car in Florida, there's risks, right? We all have different appetites, but with risk, it's one of those things where you take it either because you have to or because you want to. And what I found, Paul, is quite frankly, a lot of the people that we sit down with, risk is a want, not a need. And they don't realize that. And a lot of those people go, well, I didn't really think about that, Brad, and I don't really want the risk.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, then you just don't need the risk. And so we use the analogy all the time of mountain climbing in my office, and we talk about Mount Everest because, of course, if you're going to talk about mountain climbing, that's
Peak.
it, right?
Yeah,
that's the pinnacle. Now, I'm not a mountain climber, don't get me wrong, so I don't understand all the perils of climbing a mountain, let alone Mount Everest. But what I do know is this, that what you do to climb a mountain is very different than what you do to get back down. Now, I grew up in Iowa, and so I'm not a mountain climber, but as a kid, I climbed a lot of trees. And same thing. You never use the exact same branches or the exact same route to get back down. In fact, a lot of times you have to do the exact opposite of what you did to get up there to get back down. And so looking at a retirement portfolio from the perspective of risk, a lot of times is backwards. Like, I'm in the market and, you know, it's done really, really well. And so to your point, what do I do now? The first question I want to ask is, well, do you even need to be in it? And at what level do you need to be in it? And are there ways that we can kind of put airbags up around what you have just to make sure that, you know, if another event happens, that you're insulated from it? You know, as an advisor, I don't ever want to have to answer to my client, quite frankly. I mean, you could call it lazy if you want to. It might be of, hey, Brad, 30% of my money disappeared and now I can't stay retired. I don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah, right. That's a horrible conversation to have, right?
I mean, and the name of the show is Every Day is Saturday. Every day's not Saturday when your portfolio dropped 30%.
No.
Right?
No.
Or 20% or whatever it takes to help you not sleep at night. And so we got to figure out ways to get to the outcomes that you want. The interesting part is in those savings years, right? When you're climbing the mountain and you're trying to grow your pile of money, which is where I'm at. I kind of have this close my eyes mentality where I'm just going to put it in there. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to let the market do what the market does. And I'm not going to ride the little micro movements. I'm going to play the macro game. But in retirement, it's the exact opposite. We just got to figure out what outcomes you want with your pile of money, how you want to spend it, the life you want to live, the things that you want to do, who you want to give to, and then back into that and figure out how we can put things together that you get to sleep at night.
And that's good information because, I'll be honest, I'll just tell you where I'm at. You know, at 54 years old, and you've done well to a certain point, you start to really
Sure.
get the serious value of time. I mean, the very serious value.
Yeah.
Because the biggest part about me being in the market is all the time it took me to get to where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I still like to make some money
Yeah.
in the market. I still like to accumulate it, Brad, but I got to be honest. I want to I want to hold on to all the stuff that I've got in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not telling you that people should just exit the markets blindly and just go to cash. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But maybe a different analogy that will work is, you know, I'm on offense right now.
Yeah.
I'm in my savings years. I'm on the precipice of 40 years old. So I still got a lot of time. In my head, I'm going to work until I can't. So I'm just one of those kind of, I'm going to die at the desk kind of people.
Sure.
And that may change. That probably will change. But as of right now, if you ask me, that's where I'd be at. So I'm still in kind of that growth mode. I'm on offense. Whereas when you get to retirement or near retirement, you play defense first. It doesn't mean that you don't have an offensive team, right?
Yeah.
But if it's the fourth quarter and you're up by 2 touchdowns, what are you doing throwing the ball 60 yards down the field?
True.
You know?
That's a very good point. Very good.
Hold on to the ball, play defense first, and once you've got your defense established and you know that you can't lose, or that your plan is insulated in a way that you're going to be fine no matter what, then we add the offense back in. But again, it's that whole opposite. We're coming down a mountain now. And unfortunately, again, I just think my industry has failed there a bit to the average consumer because they focus in on climbing the mountain.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so many advisors that are so good at helping people save money and grow their pile of money. But in retirement, that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Now you got to figure out how to spend it.
True.
Right? And nobody dreams about retirement with this idea that they're going to sit at home and watch The Price is Right, which isn't as good anymore because Bob Barker's not on there.
Hey, I like The Price is Right.
Yeah, it's not as good anymore, though. Drew Carey's fine.
Yeah, he's fine.
But nobody dreams that that's what they're going to do and sit in their chair with this constant nagging worry of, do they have enough?
Yeah.
You know, am I taking too much risk? And then choosing not to go on vacations, choosing not to go see grandkids, choosing not to, you know, buy the car that you want because you have these concerns. And so they end up dying the richest person in the cemetery.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not an everyday Saturday approach.
Well, you know, we're running out of time, and I got to tell you, I've really enjoyed it. Very informative. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Paul.
But this really comes down to you, because that's what it's about. It's about your future. There's a few spots left. Give Brad and his team a call. Let him help you. Because the question is, what do you want your tomorrow to look like? Find out today. Give him a call, 844-726-9116. Thank you for being with us, and take care of yourselves, everybody.